Hello everyone, so this is the second video in the sequence of negative numbers. We've done addition and subtraction of negative numbers, so now we're going to look at multiplying and dividing them. So before you start, you should really be able to do the addition and subtraction very confidently. So can you just pause the video for a second and quickly complete the 10 calculations that are on the sheet in front of you. Okay, and just to check your answers, now that you've done them, you should have 1, -5, 0, -2, -8, 1, -3, -2, -2 again, and -5. Okay, so if you got all of those right, you're definitely ready to move on to the next step, which is start to think about negative numbers and multiplication. So let's try and put it into context a little bit. And if you think about it, if the temperature was 4 degrees outside and it gets 5 times warmer, then the new temperature is going to be the same as doing 4 times 5, which of course you'll be able to do already, which is 20, so 20 degrees centigrade. But I want you to think about, what if it gets 5 times colder? So if it's -4 and it gets 5 times colder, that's the same as -4 times by 5. And -4 times by 5 would give us -20. Think of it as 5 times more negative than what you already have. That kind of makes sense, I suppose. And then we start to think about something a bit more complicated. What if it's 4 degrees and the temperature gets -5 times colder? Well, if you think about this, think about multiplication. Multiplication can be done in any order. So this is the same as thinking the temperature is -5 and it gets 4 times colder. Well, -5 times 4 or 4 times -5 will give you -20. And finally, we've got, here's my snowman. It's had a bit of a bad time. It's -4 degrees. And if the temperature gets -5 times colder, what's the new temperature? Well, in this scenario, remember what we said, if we do timesing by -5, then it's almost a bit like reversing the answers. So -4 times -5 will actually give us 20 degrees centigrade. So to try and sum this up and try and put it into a bit of a table, we've got our table here. So if you start with, this is positive, by the way, this plus VE, that means the same thing as positive. And the negative is this symbol here, negative. So if we take a positive number and we times it by another positive number, these are the first types of multiplications you would have ever done. And you will know that a positive times a positive all will equal a positive number. If, however, you take a negative number and you times it by a positive number, think our -4 times by 5, that will give us a negative answer. So for example, -4 times by 5 gives us -20. Now that's the same digits, I suppose, as doing 4 times 5 equals 20, but you can see that because one of those numbers is negative, the answer itself will also be negative. If we think another one on this table, if we go for a positive number times by a negative number, so for example, 4 times -5, that is -20. And that's because one of those numbers is negative, it means the answer will also be negative. And the last one, and probably the one that confuses people most, is what happens if you get 2 negative numbers? Well, if you start with -4 and you times it by -5, you'll actually get the answer 20. So 2 negative numbers multiplied together will give you a positive answer. Okay, so now looking at this then, you'll need to pause the video in a second. But on this grid, there are 4 missing values. You need to find out by doing the multiplications. So for example, if you can see here, we've got -2 times 3. -2 times by 3 gives -6. Can you now find the missing answers that are here and here, here, and here? Write them onto your piece of rough paper, or if you have a whiteboard at home, then use one of those. And just pause the video and we'll correct it in a second. Okay, so our missing values, we have -3 times by 2, and that will give us -6. Our next one, here we have 2 times -2, and that will give us -4. And over here, we have -1 times by negative 3, and that should give us 3 because it's a negative times by a negative. And finally, for the last box, we have negative 3 times by negative 3, and because both of those are negatives, we know that we're going to get positive 9, or just 9. Okay, so now you're going to need to pause the video and just have a little go at doing these activities and see how you get on. Okay, so let's go through our answers. We've got 5 times negative 2, that gives us negative 10. Negative 6 times by 3 gives us negative 18. 4 times 7, or positive 4 times positive 7, will give us 28. Negative 3 times by negative 7, that will give us 21. And negative 1 times 4 times negative 3. We'll need to think of this as two different calculations. I'm going to do this bit first. So negative 1 times by 4 will give us negative 4. So let's just put our little subtitle here, negative 4. And we've got negative 4 times by 3, because both are negative, we're going to end up getting 12. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next step. Well, division uses exactly the same rules. The rules don't change even though the function has. So I want to pause it now and use all of the knowledge you've just done to do some dividing by negative numbers. Okay, so let's go through those answers. 15 divided by negative 3. Because we have a negative in the answer in the question, we're going to end up with a negative in our answer, so that's negative 5. We have negative 70 divided by 10. Again, we have a negative number in the question, which means we're going to end up with a negative number in the answer. We have 28 divided by 4, both positive, so they're both going to be a positive number. Negative 56 divided by negative 7. They're both negative, which means that our answer will be positive. And again, we've got this two-step problem here, lots and lots of signs. So let's break it up. We've got 60 divided by negative 3, and we'll take that answer and divide it by negative 5. Well, 60 divided by negative 3 gives us negative 20. And negative 20 divided by negative 5 will give us 4. Okay, so now you've done all the work you need to do on multiplying and dividing negatives. Have a go at the task that you have been set.